Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay here. We were having technical issues with our internet not working. So hopefully from here on it will work. Again, apologize for the delay. So welcome to this today's webinar. My name is Kyle Davis. I'm going to be covering roofs with tapered insulation and just some kind of general roof stuff. So let's go ahead and get some things going through here of the questions. If you have any questions, you can use the panel on your control panel. You can ask any questions if I'm going over it. And then at the end, I'll be able to answer those questions. Also, this is being recorded, so will potentially be posted to our YouTube channel later. So let's get started in here about the roofs. Here I have a sample project that I have a roof created. And I'm going to take this roof and I'm going to talk about how to create the roof to have the tapered insulation, or just in rooms or floors as well, to include slopes to them. So first thing here is I'm going to talk about how to create a certain type of roof or floor that does this. I'm going to use the one here I have that created that has the rigid insulation in it. And when you want to start off with this, inside the type properties, going back into the structure, there is an option in here that you want to look at for that material. So here I follow over, grab the rigid insulation, and then at the very end of it I can say variable. This is the key to getting this to work. If you do not check any of these to be variable, basically this will slope the entire structure instead of just sloping tapering the insulation, or in a floor case, the concrete. And that's what I'll talk about next with the floor. So I'm going to check in the variable for the roof here for the insulation. And then I have a 3-inch rigid insulation. So when I do that, now if I select it, and you have to have a flat roof, you cannot have any roof that has pitches and slopes to it. It has to be flat. And when it is flat up here on the ribbon, you will get the options to modify the shape. And you have options of adding points, split lines, picking supports, and modifying sub-elements. So here first I'm going to start off with saying add point. And I typically like to do this in a floor plan view, so I'm going to jump to a floor plan view first. Then I'm going to say add point. Then before I add the point, over here underneath the ribbon on the options bar, we have elevation for this point and relative. And what you want to do here is you can give this a positive or negative value to tell it where to slope. Now, typically, if by default here, if I simply come in here and just say -2 inches, and I just start randomly picking a point in here, it's going to start wanting to triangulate from all different kinds of directions and angles. So here I put one here in the middle, and now it's pulling from way over here on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. So this is actually where it's not as not handy to do this. So I'm going to undo putting that point there. So what I typically would start recommending is, if you try to do that, you might have that issue. So what I'll typically start to do is I'll come up here and add a point at 0 along some of these points. So for example, I might want to line a point up right here at the very top. So I'll add a point right there at 0. And I might add a point over here at 0, and so on every single side that I need it to remain there and not have it taper to the wrong point. Then I can come back and start adding the negative zeros. So I'm going to say -2 inches. So I am seeing some are saying that there are sound issues and no sound going through. I am seeing that on my side too, that the audio is not going through correctly, so we might be having some internet issues still here. So hopefully at least if you can potentially see my screen here, you can just kind of watch what I'm doing. I am going to show here that now after putting some 0 points in here, I'm going to come back in and put some negative values. I missed that one here, so I'm going to put one back. Okay, so I'm going to say -2 inches, and then I'm going to put one right here. And as you can see, it starts to triangulate coming from this point down to here and so on over here. Now again, when I'm placing these points, it is actually fairly difficult to get that maybe exactly centered in this area. So to try to get these lines exactly where you want with just putting a dot randomly here can be pretty difficult. So what I typically will do is I'll come back and put in some other things like maybe some model lines here that give me an indication, or some reference planes. I prefer model lines because this will allow me to kind of just snap to an endpoint, or wherever I have that roof going. And then I can use this in turn to use it as a reference when I'm placing that point. So I'm going to come back through here again and tab to my roof here. I'm going to select my roof, add more points, -2 inches, and I'm going to pick the middle of that line. So now it's going to be sloping from that location right in the middle. So again, I can do that same thing on all the different sides over here. So it might be best to do these ahead of time, creating all the model lines instead of just one at a time. But I'm just going to show here that I can create that one, and then I'm going to come through here and create this one. Sometimes it'll give me an endpoint of where I actually did a pick point earlier, but I don't have to have that many lines. I could just have one line here. So I'm going to delete it and just to go here. Add a point, -2 inches again, and pick the middle of that line. So again here it's missing a 0 line over here, or a 0 point. So if I put a 0 point there, now it's triangulating correctly. Now I'm going to put another -2 inches here. And then I'm going to put one down here and put one over here. Now in this case, I'm having another issue where it's trying to triangulate down from here to here. So there might be, again, more points that we need to add, or add split lines. I really like the split lines here so that I can go from that point to this point. So it's already has these points already there. So all I'm doing is drawing a line where I want that to be to correct the slope issue here. So again, split line, I'm going to go from this point to this point, and it's going to correct the issue of having the slope line right here trying to indicate that it's going there. So now in doing this, in creating all these, adding points and add this, I can always come back later and use the modify sub-elements to then raise or lower this. So if I wanted this one to not be -2 inches, but be -1 inch, I can raise or lower that point. And then in doing this, come back later, I'm going to draw a section here right through the middle of where that taper is, and then go to the section view, zoom in here to it, and you can actually see this top of this roof is starting to slope here. I'm going to go into fine level of detail and show that it is, in fact, the insulation is tapering to the point. So right there is a point. I can zoom in and actually see some of the lines there. Get a better look of this. I'm going to grab my section and not pull it back so much. Make it a tiny section. So here you can get a better eye look of showing how the taper insulation is going. So down here at the end, it's 2 inches in thickness, or 3 inches in thickness, and then it drops down to 1 inch in thickness over here because I told it to be -2 inches, so it subtracted 2 inches off the rigid insulation. But it is keeping the EPDM sitting on top, the 1/4 inch that I have in here. It is still taking that and following the tapered insulation. So it's keeping that thickness all the way across, but it is getting making the rigid insulation taper. This option is also available for floors. That's not a floor in this one. So here I'm going to go hide my roof here, and I do have a floor underneath here at the bottom on the first floor that I can actually do the same thing to, where I can go into the type properties, edit the structure, and make this element variable so that anywhere I have this place I can actually taper it. So here it's 4 inches in thickness. I'm going to make it variable, and then maybe come through here and say add points and put in some 0 points maybe around this room here. So if I wanted to taper this, or like in this case I'm going to do like the bathroom, the restroom, I'm going to create a slope here. So now I got to have it right on that line, and then I have one there already, and then I'm going to put one over here. So now it's only going to slope from these points down here, and then I'm going to come through and say -2 inches and put one right there. So this could be a floor drain as well. And again, I can put as many as I want. I can always come back afterward and move that dot around. So if I put it in the wrong location, or add more points, put a 0, 1 there, and a 0, 1 there, and a 0, 1 over here. Now sometimes a Revit will do this, and this is because this point wants to be at a value, so I might have to make sure that these say 0. So I'm tapering the floor at that location only. And again, you might need to add the split lines, that if it's not putting it where you want, you get too close to one area and all of a sudden it breaks that slope, you might need to come back and do that for the slope lines. Now again, this is only available for flat roofs and flat floors. It's not available if you put any kind of slope to the roof. So if you're trying to get a roof, in this example, this is not a slope roof here, but if I wanted to slope that roof all the way back to the bottom, have it be an angle to it, this option won't be available if you kind of have that pitch slope to it. All right, well, any questions right now you're having? I know, again, I apologize for the internet issues. I'm seeing comments about the audio and video jumping. Hopefully the recording is going to pick this up all correctly and not have the jumping audio or the missing audio and the screen jumping. So if you wanted to look at this webinar later, hopefully the recording is good, but again, I do apologize. We're still experiencing a few issues here with the internet, and hopefully that gets resolved and that this recording is going to be fine. But if you have any questions, please, go in your question answer, go ahead and provide those. One question that just came in, is there a way to specify the slope instead of points? Unfortunately, no, there is not. I know that's been a big one of, can I specify the slope of the taper? Unfortunately, it is based on measurements instead of giving that a 1/4 inch slope or an 1/8 inch slope or something like that. So currently the only way to do it is by inches, so you have to kind of know that measurement. And then one question is, where do you go to see the recording? We can go to YouTube and search for CAD Technology Center. And then that should show you and pop up with our YouTube channel, and then you can look at all our previous recordings. So again, here I'll just to show you this, I'm going to go to youtube.com and search for CAD Technology Center. Oh, don't need the .com in there. So again, we're having issues here, so it's not letting me go to. Hopefully you can, again, go to youtube.com, search CAD Technology Center, and that should come up, and that will be where we will post our videos. Now, this one is just being recorded, so it might be a day or two before it gets posted. But again, hopefully the recording is going through. If not, maybe we will reschedule this one so that we can get a better demonstration. Are there any further questions? All right, well, I will go ahead and end the webinar at this time. But again, if you have any things, you can please let us know, and also keep an eye on our YouTube channel. Thanks, and have a good day.